How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Amaze the Storyteller, and I haven't posted in quite a long time. But I'm glad to be back. I've had some things go terribly right, and I'm going to post as many times as I can in a week. I can't promise it'll be daily, but it'll at least be 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And today we're going to kick things off with a really cool video idea. I mentioned it a while ago, the Akatsuki versus 7 Warlords. And today I bring you, ladies and gentlemen, Crocodile versus Sasori, a matchup you never knew you needed until now. Now this is super cool, this is super exciting, because Sasori is the man with 1,000 puppets, able to control them all with his little fingies, and in fact his true body was pretty much destroyed and disposed of. He left his soul with an ancient technique and curse embedded in a secret puppet that could hold himself modeled after his original body. Beautiful, young, and forever crystallized in this puppet form, the ideal of true perfection, which actually mirrors Datara really well. If you look at their two parallels, they are obsessed with perfection and mortality. One is through art and one is through preservation. And Sasori really does embody that of preservation. He's an incredible tactician, able to take over a country overnight, but so does another character. A character I'm extremely biased towards. Now, if you guys have followed my channel, you already know where I'm going with this. If you're brand new here, love you. Thanks for stopping by. I am a One Piece bias guy. I'm a One Piece fan. It is what it is. I am an anime fan, but I'm a One Piece fan. And if you know One Piece fans, we tend to think One Piece is kinda great. And in this case, I tend to think Sir Crocodile, the 7 Warlord fallen from grace because of pre-time skip writing and MC abilities hacks by the author. What an incredible character, guys. I think Crocodile is one of the most underutilized characters in all of One Piece. Now, he's making a great comeback. Leader of the Cross Guild, absolutely a phantom Yonko in his own right, controlling things from the shadows just like he did in the beginning, but I need to hype him up a little bit. Sasori is an incredibly strong Akatsuki member, has a bounty in the bingo book higher than I care to count, and is an amazing sorcerer. He can control 100 puppets with little stringies and fingies, and it's absolutely insane the destruction he can cause. He brought down the Hidden Sand overnight, nobody knew, and the 3rd Kazekage became under his control with a puppet ability. Alright, Sasori's no joke. Now, Crocodile, on the other hand, is a super genius. He created an underground syndicate right under the world government's noses. Now, this feat is forgotten about, but becomes more and more impressive as One Piece goes on. As we know now, the world government quite literally controls everything, and I'm not talking about the Marines. Right now, the Marines are like scrub wish-wash. There are strong Marines, Fujitora, Aka Inu, and those individuals, the admirals alike, they're strong. Rikyogu, they're nothing compared to the Holy Knights, which we know are the true threats now. We know that they are the upper echelon that protect the Celestial Dragons in the Holy Land of Marijwal and are in fact Holy Knights themselves. Or excuse me, Celestial Dragons themselves. Right, these guys are so overpowered, they're able to do whatever they want, like play a game where they hunt pirates, which in fact, Crocodile might have been on God Valley. Timeline matches pretty well given his age. Now, we're not doing Crocodile One Piece theory videos, no silly gooses. We're doing a versus battle matchup where we have the man, the myth, the legend, the Logia fruit user himself that was taken down tragically by Monkey D. Luffy. Let me give you some backstory to Crocodile just to build him up a little bit more. Sorry, I'm tapping this thing under my desk. Shouldn't do that while making a video. But Crocodile was a super genius, okay? Not only did he foil the world government's plans for Alabasta, he took control of the kingdom under everybody's noses, feigned King Cobra still being alive with a fake king, and had this whole plan to get Pluton, which we know more about Pluton now than we ever did, and we know that Pluton is so destructive, Crocodile would have succeeded in taking over the world. That's how much of a threat he was in pre-time skip One Piece, back when hockey didn't exist, when these crazy power scaling abilities were absolutely nonsensical. Crocodile was out there making waves and headlines under the world government's nose. And we know how much the world government controls. We know how infiltrated CPs are. Cipher polls, right? Their spy agencies were everywhere, listening and everything. We've seen whole countries get decimated because they talk bad about the world government. Like Luisha Kingdom. Crocodile was able to take over a country that was in fact part of the original, 13 kings? Or 22 kings, I don't remember the exact number, but Crocodile was able to infiltrate, take over, and make his crime syndicate as crazy as it was. To give you this scale as a concept, he was in every single country along the Grand Line. He had agents everywhere. And for the namesake, they were not jokes. You had the officer agents, 1 through 14. Then you had the billions, then you had the millions, and then you had the billions under them. The millions could replace the officer agents if they were recognized enough and had the power to keep up. The billions could become millions. And this structure of hierarchy kept Mr. Zero, as we know as Crocodile's identity, a secret. Crocodile is a super genius. And as the fight will go against Sasori, you'll begin to see it unravel. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say, alright? He was too weak. He got beaten by time skip Luffy. I hate to break it to you, but in the continuity of One Piece, Luffy's growth is only maybe 3 years. I think in fact it's less than 3 years. The entire story as we know it with Luffy is only 3 years long. Crocodile fought Nika before he was awakened, sure, but he did fight Nika. Luffy is not a pirate at the beginning of the story with a bounty that warranted and reflected his power level. Before the time skip, Luffy jumped from nothing to 400 million berries. Okay? Insane. Now, Crocodile beat that kid. Not just beat him, but would have killed him 4 times. Okay? Let me break it down for you. With the ability of his right hand, he shriveled up and dehydrated Luffy. That's 1. 2. He stabbed Luffy. That's 2. 3. He buried Luffy into the dirt, submerged him in a whirlpool of quicksand, and Luffy would have died if it hadn't been for Nico Robin's intervention. And number 4, Luffy was poisoned. Okay? Nico Robin having the antidote, when the Pluton cave collapsed, it would have been Cobra, Luffy, and Robin dead, and Crocodile would have survived thanks to his Logia abilities. There was nothing Luffy could do against Crocodile before he figured out Crocodile's weakness on accident. Sasori is going to have the same struggle, but we're not there yet. We're still hyping up Crocodile. Now, if that wasn't enough, he's now the leader of a cross guild. What's a cross guild? Well, they're essentially individuals that hunt marines and put bounties out on them. Now, what's Crocodile's role within this organization? He's the financial backing to this entire organization. When Garp has a 3 billion berry bounty on his head, it's up to Crocodile to pay that. Alright? Now, Crocodile's an underground broker synonymous with Doflamingo. There are actually really good parallels between the two. Crocodile, in my opinion, is way cooler of a character, but Doflamingo's up there too. And they clashed. Doflamingo and Crocodile fought. And every time, it was a draw. Now, you could say things like it was early writing, or Oda didn't want to showcase Doflamingo's powers, whatever. I agree with you, okay? I know that very well. But at the very least, we can break this down and actually look at Doflamingo cutting off Crocodile's head during their clash. And Crocodile was able to at least feel the sensation and separate his body, because you have to assume Doflamingo was absolutely using Haki. It's ridiculous not to. He would want to kill Crocodile, right? They're both underground brokers, and Crocodile made a fool of Doflamingo by denying him partnership. So Doflamingo, of course, is going to kill Crocodile. Why wouldn't he? But Crocodile is also overpowered in his own right, and Sengoku thought about calling Crocodile to the Summit War to help out, because he would have been massively beneficial, stated by Sengoku, the previous fleet admiral. So, Crocodile has been undermined by the One Piece fandom for many years, because he was defeated by pre-time skip Luffy. I understand it, but he suffers from early One Piece disease. We all know that have been in the community long enough. I remember, and some of you were not even born when some of this stuff was animated, let alone when it was in the manga. But I remember waiting for the manga to come out, chapter by chapter, and reading the fight with Luffy and Crocodile. Not the final fight in the tomb with Cobra. I'm talking about prior, when Luffy got absolutely curb stomped repeatedly, and it was like, alright, this time Luffy's done. Like, it's wrap, bag it up, let's go. Luffy's fought. He's KO'd. There's nothing he can do. He's gonna have to get some kind of power up or learn some type of skill, and lo and behold, he did. He learned about water. Great. Luffy learned about water. Now that being said, I kind of did some research. I'm under a time crux, like I mentioned. I'm having mental health issues and all this other stuff, blah, blah, blah. Rewatched the Sasori, Granny U, and Sakura fight, right? Just on YouTube, just in passing, because I'm still rewatching One Piece. Especially now with the revelation of Rocks and who he was and what his potential is within the One Piece story and him merging with Blackbeard using the Op no Mi. Like, it's all crazy. It's all I'm saying. Okay, I've rewatched One Piece as a One Piece YouTuber, but I did rewatch the fight. And in that fight, Sasori using his 100 puppets, I didn't see a single instance where he utilized water techniques, but even if he does, or did, guys, this is the most insane thing that I didn't even think of until later, okay? I had ChatGPT break down this fight, and it gave Crocodile the dub through nonsense like using his right hand to disintegrate the puppets, and then I was like, what if Sasori uses water style? And then it gave the win to Sasori. If Sasori could use water style, great. Right? ChatGPT is great for this kind of stuff because you can really condense and compartmentalize the fight into set by set. One thing I was thinking about while we were in this fight, and it takes me back, guys, come with me. We're going on a journey. Remember when Shino utilized his bugs to consume the chakra networks on Kabuto, and Kabuto could no longer use his puppets, which made me think that it's possible that these chakra networks that these puppeteer users use are actual physical plasma. Like, chakra manifested into plasma makes sense because it's taxing, right? Unlike devil fruit abilities like Logia's, you can't spam chakra, you can't spam jutsu. Your chakra will run out eventually, no matter how much of a tank you are, and the only one who would stand a chance is Hashirama, if that was where I wanted to go with this battle, in terms of stamina. But that's not where I want to go with this. What if Crocodile had the ability to utilize his grains of sand to clog up Sasori's chakra networks to where he could no longer control the puppets? That is the easiest dub I think of, because it's not as if he's controlling sand. It's not as if Crocodile is controlling sand with just chakra, like Gaara. Crocodile's not like Gaara. Crocodile's abilities are that he is the embodiment, manifestation, imagination, and amalgamation of sand itself. He is his sand in his body, and he can control sand. So he absolutely could clog up those chakra networks, not allowing Sasori to, at the very least, expel his chakra strings to the puppets, nulling any ability Sasori had. Now, Sasori with his martial arts ability are overpowered. Alright, everybody in the Naruto-verse solos in martial arts. They train when they're like fucking 4 years old to kill other ninjas. Not even men, other ninjas. So to think that Crocodile holds a candle to Sasori in martial arts is crazy. But he doesn't need it, he's made of sand. Unless Sasori utilized his poison, which is liquid format, Crocodile would essentially be immortal to anything he threw at him. So, the way this fight would go down is that Sasori immediately goes out of the gate with 100 puppets, right? Crocodile talking mad shit. Sasori realizes a threat immediately after trying to stab him with his tail. Crocodile grabs his tail, turns it to dust. Sasori's freaked out. Boom! 100 puppets. Crocodile clogs him up with sand because Crocodile's a mega genius. Again, had a crime syndicate right under the government's nose. Nobody knew about it. He was allowed to do it because he was a sanctioned warlord, but nobody knew about it, and he clogged it up. And that's when Sasori would panic and immediately resort to martial arts. And then Crocodile would just immediately suck him up. All moisture out of that presence, right? Mobilize the bonds, turn them into chemistry. Next thing you know, on the ground, Crocodile wins. He picks up that weird little thing that's in Sasori's chest, looks at it, and just stabs it in his hook and walks away. Sasori's killed. That's really how it would go. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Now, Sasori does stand a chance. If you guys can go back and show me where his puppets can use water jutsu, I'm sure they could. But again, going back to the Doflamingo fight, Crocodile can sense when things are coming thanks to observation hockey. And he can essentially dodge, shift his body around, or disapparate when he needs to. Not only that, Crocodile's smart enough not to engage with the water jutsu users and would keep his distance utilizing different movesets like Sables, where he would essentially contaminate the water with sand by making his windstorms, or utilizing Desert La Spada, slicing Sasori in half before he even had time to connect his chakra strings to the water user puppets. Okay? So no way Sasori beats Crocodile. And that is the fight, guys. Crocodile is an extremely overpowered character alone. Put him into a verse where the characters are significantly dumbed down in terms of power scaling. Crocodile wipes the floor with them. Now, that's not true for every Warlord, just this one in particular. But anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know what you guys think of the Akatsuki versus Warlord theories. And I would love to see more of your video suggestions. You guys don't give me enough. I know you guys want to see some minor characters talked about. I know you guys want to see some matchups that are crazy. The next video I'm going to make is about Genma. I'm doing a ton of research on Genma, the 4th Hokage's guard, Royal of the 3rd Hokage as well, and mastery over the Flying Raijin Jutsu, which is apparently a really hard jutsu to learn. So, what are your opinions, guys? What do you want to see next? It's good to be back. I love you all. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.